views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Parish, your host, and my co-host is Bud Mendenhall. Our guests today are two World War veterans, Bob Franke and George Kohlmeier, and sitting in also is Dave Yates from Honor Flight. We'll be talking to the veterans about their experiences during World War II. George, you want to start out telling us where was you guys drafted?
Well, I was drafted, sent to Fort Perry near Toledo, Ohio, and after a few days there, put on a train and headed for Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Camp Carson.
It was Camp Carson at the time, and turned out that we became the 10th Mountain Division. We trained first there at Camp Carson and got our mules. We had to have mules called mule pack groups, where we packed everything on the mules that we needed and would go someplace. We trained, like I said, first at Camp Carson by going up in the mountains a ways for a day and coming back. And then we moved up to Camp Hale, Colorado, which was further back into the mountains near Leadville, Colorado. There was a valley up there that they had built this camp, the whole division. It was quite a place. So there, naturally, we were in colder weather, and that's where most of the fellows learned how to ski. My experience is that I had been chosen to go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to communication school. And that's when they were learning how to ski. So I was in the ski troop, but I never learned how to ski. I missed out on that. I had been issued the uniforms and the skis and everything, but then I spent several months in Fort Sill instead. When I came back from communication school, they were in the midst of one of their training experiences. Very, very cold. I think it was the wind chill was like 40 below. Well, I wasn't used to that, coming from south warm weather. So I would go out during the day. They'd take me out during the day, but bring me back at night. I didn't sleep in a tent out there at night like the rest of them did. From Camp Hale, training for mountain warfare, of all places, they sent us to Texas, to train in Texas, and it looked like like the Sahara Desert area. You know, it was all sand, and we were, well, what is this? What are we training for here? We're probably going to go to the Pacific or someplace, you know. Well, we trained there for a while, and then finally we got our marching orders to go to Italy. Got on board ship and headed out for Italy, and you mentioned about different things that they would have a band playing as you got on board ship, and of course one of the things they played was Back Home Again, Indiana, you know. Of course I kept telling my buddies all the time what a wonderful place Indiana was, and they could never believe me, and I see they're even playing for us. So anyway, we had our experience in more northern Italy, in the Alpine area, and we had our first big engagement was Mount Belvedere area, which had the Germans had been holding on to it, and nobody could break it. And our troops, I happened to be in the artillery. I was fortunate I wasn't right on the front line, but they had to scale mountains to get up behind them to surprise the Germans. That's how that was finally taken, and then from there on up through the Po Valley. And when the war ended, we were at Lake Garda. Lake Garda, there was a road going right along there, but there are tunnels. There's the mountainsides coming down, and they had a tunnel through it for the to be able to keep going a highway through there. One of my good buddies, well, you ever hear of ducks? Well, we had ducks too. Some of them couldn't, had to get in ducks and go around, and one of our ducks, I don't know how many people it went down. We lost quite a few fellas right there. But one of my good buddies, who was a forward observer, he was in one of these tunnels, and he's sitting on one side of the tunnel, and he decided to move over to the other side, and about that time a shell came in where he was sitting. He'd been blown up. He did get injured, but he happened to just move out of the way. So he did get injured, but and that's when we were there along that's when the war ended. So that was our...
The Italian campaign was one of the worst in Europe.
Uh-huh, right.
I read where there was over 300,000 or 360,000, I think, was killed or injured.
In the European. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we lost out of ours right at the beginning around 1,000. So it was pretty rough going for a while.
Did you use the mules over there?
Yes, we did, to some extent, to take supplies up front. The reason I say yes, because another good friend of mine, and I have so much respect for this gentleman, he was Jewish. He could have had a position in D.C. They offered him a position in D.C. No, he wanted to be in the ski troops. So he became a corporal, but he and I were bunked next to each other. But he was leading a mule with supplies up to the front, and the mule stepped on a mine. And he got hurt, his hands and things. And like I said, he was just a wonderful guy, a good sense of humor. He'd take me down to the gym before we went overseas and said, "Come on, George, let's go to the gym." And he'd want a box, you know. Well, I did that one time. That's enough of this, Ben, you know. But anyway, that's the first time I heard this story, whether he started or whether it wasn't. I don't think he started. But he asked the nurse, he says, "Will I be able to play piano now?" Well, she says, "I don't know why not." He said, "Well, I never could before." You know, that's the kind of fellow he was. He was a great guy. No, we had a lot of good friends. And before the division really got started, the beginning of it, in order to get into the ski troops, ski patrols, you had I think 2 or 3 letters of recommendation to even get into the outfit. So it had quite history behind it. And there was a man by the name of, who was called Minnie Dole, who was pushing this all the time for the ski troops through the government, and finally got it through. He's saying, this is what Germany has, this is what all these foreign countries have. In fact, Japan had it. He said, we need it too, you know. Finally got it through.
Well, the reason I asked that question, I had a friend was in the Army, was in the Korea, was in the mule patrol.
Is that right?
He got wounded over Korea with the mule. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we used them, but we more or less went motorized over there, because I so happened they assigned me to driving a colonel around. I had a Jeep, and he was one of these gung-ho guys, always wanted to be right up on the front somewhere. And I said, oh, boy, you know, let's go over there. I think I see somebody. Let's go there. And I said, okay, but
Yeah.
Bob, was you drafted?
No.
You volunteered?
I,
R.A.
yeah, I seen a sign at the post office where you could get into cadet school. And we went, that was on June the 3rd, 1942. And I didn't go in till November 3rd, 1942. And we got on a train at, in Ohio, where, I don't know, we headed for San Antonio. And we was there for 3 days on that train, and it was a mess by the time we got. They pulled off the siding, I think, to let cattle go through. And when I found out that I wasn't going to be, after I got through my training, it took a year to get through. Why, I got married, and my wife is still with me.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, we'll have our 67th wedding anniversary in June the 3rd.
So what did you do in the service?
I was a fighter pilot.
Fighter pilot.
Yeah.
That was the.
Every 9 weeks we left one base and went to another. And I think that guy at Enid, Oklahoma was my caregiver or something. Blessing, because he had 11 other students he sent up for a check ride, and me, he didn't. I couldn't figure that out. And they followed through in advanced at Texas, where they made an instructor out of me. And they sent me to Randolph Field, and they didn't need any more instructors. So I got washed out.
Oh.
That was my first washout. But they had 35% washout rate in every place I went, except in advanced. That was at Foster Field, Texas. And one guy got washed out. He was standing in line. We had to have a physical every 9 weeks. Every time we went to another spot, we had to have a physical.
Huh.
And one guy was standing in line to have his blood taken, and he seen the guy in front of him. They took the blood out of him, and he passed out. That was the end of him. That was the only guy who got washed out in advance.
So, tell us some of your experiences as flying.
Oh, I had quite a few of them. I had that P-63 I flew, and I came home from a mission one day, and my wife had the car. And she was sitting outside in Laredo, Texas, under a date tree. And I split out from 10,000 feet. I came on the deck and went by her. I was indicating 500 miles an hour with that P-60.
What was that? Almost broke the sound barrier.
Yeah, not quite. And she come out and picked me up. She had to have a car that day. And another time, I was a Fairchild PT-19. I don't know if you knew what that was or not. But that was an open cockpit, and it had an instructor that rode the back seat behind you. And he told me